Hey guys, Galaxy Studios here with my coverage of Round 1 of the NatDex Monotype Open. I was pleasantly surprised when a NatDex Monotype Open was announced because that's the format I primarily play on Pokemon Showdown, and I wasn't sure an other metagame of an other metagame would even get an Open. But it did, and this is my chance to prove myself against a lot of more experienced players. So I joined and I was matched up against someone really good round 1. I'm pretty new to the scene, so I don't know of Toy Time King's various accomplishments, but I do know that he's a pretty big name. So I knew that I had to prepare something beyond the usual electric type team I usually bring. And so I started working on a mono ground secondary in the background, designed to beat mono poison and opposing mono ground, which are Electric's two worst matchups. However, Toy Time King decided to bring Electric to game 1, which ran right into its second worst matchup in my mono ground. Of course, having played this matchup many times from the other side, I knew that this was not a foregone conclusion, and so I had to play very carefully. Now, I know that he expects me to lead Hippowdon, so he'll probably counter-lead that with Tapu Koko or Zapdos, and because of that, I decided to lead with Clodsire. And I got the call right. Misses a Hurricane, and I land a very important Toxic. My win condition against the Electric-type team is going to be to Toxic Stall it out, because I really can't do much damage back because of some immunities and the fact that my Excadrill doesn't have a Rock move. I get a pretty lucky Poison on this Iron Hands, and now becomes, well, this is going to be a pretty big problem. This Rotom really can't be hit by much damage by my entire team. I know that Zeraora can't knock me out in one hit, so I land a Toxic. I just go to Hippowdon, then I go to Excadrill, and judging by this damage, I know that it's Choice Spec Zapdos. My Excadrill doesn't have a Rock move, but he doesn't know that, so it switches out. Go to Clodsire on the Hydro Pump and get some Water Absorb healing. Of course, this is Water Absorb Clodsire. You wouldn't run Unaware on a Ground-type team unless you're also running Gastrodon. I go for the super effective move on Alolan Raichu because I want to Dick Blunt Stab, and there's really no downside to doing it. And then I try Toxic Stalling the Zapdos out. Expecting the Zapdos to switch, I go for a blind Toxic and end up putting Clodsire in range of another Hurricane, so I decided to sacrifice Garchomp. Ends up getting sacrificed to Zeraora. I Mega Evolve and go for Earthquake in case it tries to go for Bulk Up. Let's go to Rotom. Then I go to Clodsire on Defog. This gives me a chance to heal myself up with Recover. And then it goes to Alolan Raichu. Gonna pause it here. Now, after doing the damage calcs, I realized that Psyshock will be able to knock me out with Life Orb. So because of that, I go to my Excadrill to absorb the Psychic. To absorb the Psyshock, but as it turns out, it is Psychic. And so I know that Rotom can't knock me out. I get some more Water Absorb healing, because he, again, went for a Blind Stab on the Excadrill. Go for Toxic, but it hits Iron Hands. I can tell from the damage output that this is most likely Choice Banded Iron Hands. Go for Whirlwind into Tapu Koko, actually, which again gives me a pretty safe switch into Clodsire. Then I land a Toxic on Alolan Raichu, and after doing the damage calcs, I see that I will always live Life Orb Psychic. And considering this is the main thing that I need Clodsire for, I go for it. And as it turns out, I live after burn on 1 HP. Koko comes in, I go to Landorus on the Grass Knot, try to catch a pound on there, and I go for Gravity, and then it's time for me to get some kills. Knocks off my Life Orb, but Earth Power still kills. I've been on the reverse end of the situation many times. Now he goes to Tapu Koko. Dazzling Gleam knocks me out, and I go to Great Tusk to throw off a Choice Scarf Headlong Rush at the Rotom. Go to Clodsire, goes to Tapu Koko, I die to the burn. Great Tusk goes for Knockoff. His Dazzling Gleam does not knock me out. I save this. Grass Knot does in fact knock out Hippowdon. I go to Excadrill, Earthquake knocks out Tapu Koko, and I end the battle in style with a corkscrew crash. And I go up 1-0 in the series. For Game 2, I go to my best, Mono Electric, featuring Choice Specs Tapu Koko, Choice Specs Zapdos, Life Orb Regieleki, Specially Defensive Rotom Wash, and 2 sets that I'm going to keep secret for now. I'll lead with Tapu Koko as they lead Swampert. Expecting Grass Knot switches Toxapex, and I know that the play is obvious, but I decide to keep them honest. Go into Zapdos on the Poison Jab that actually ends up getting a static. That actually ends up activating Static. I once again go for the super effective move, but switches into Swampert. Could have caught that with Hurricane, but didn't want to risk it so early in the game, especially since I had perfectly safe switching. Sets up Stealth Rocks as I go to Rotom. Now, from my perspective, this Swampert is being threatened by Rotom's Will-O-Wisp, which threatens to neuter its offensive capabilities, and thus it is pretty obviously going to switch out. However, I've talked to Toy Time King about this, and his Swampert is defensive leftovers and didn't care about getting burned. He thought that Rotom was not threatening it, and thus it was completely safe to switch out the Swampert. He definitely overpredicted here. What he should have realized is that I did not know his Swampert wasn't offensive, and thus my obvious play is to go for Will-O-Wisp. And thus, the Paralyzed Toxapex was the correct switching. However, he instead thinks he's safe and decides to get a brain in the process, and I, predicting the Swampert to switch out, go for Volt Switch. And at this point, I've basically won the game. Without Rain, Barraskewda can't outspeed Regieleki, and Swampert, if it is Mega, which I was assuming at this point, would not be able to outspeed Tapu Koko. I go into my Iron Hands in order to apply the most offensive pressure possible. And now, he goes to Barraskewda. Now, I know that I am able to one-hit KO Barraskewda with my electric move. He knows that too. The most common Iron Hands set is Assault Vest, with Drain Punch and Wild Charge or Thunder Punch, with Ice Punch, Earthquake, Rock Slide making up the final slots. You could even run one of those 3 over your electric move. So, Toy Time King expects me to click an electric type move against this Barraskewda because it's the only way I can knock it out, and if he locks into Liquidation and I don't click an electric move, then I have to sacrifice a Pokemon. Because of this, he goes for Flip Turn into his Swampert. However, I'm not Assault Vest. I'm Choice Banded Close Combat, and I knock out his Ground type, basically winning me the game on the spot. From there, it's a cleanup. I sacrifice my Zapdos, which is pretty good in Rain but doesn't beat any of his other 3 Rain Pokemon. He does surprise me with this Hisuian Samurott set being Choice Scarf Razor Shell to knock out Tapu Koko, but that just gives me an opportunity to go back into Regieleki, who at this point can outspeed in one shot 3 out of his remaining 4. And as it turns out, 4 out of his remaining 4 because judging by this forfeit, either he doesn't have Choice Scarf Greninja, or he realized it was too late. I beat Toy Time King, and I'm advancing to round 2 of the tournament. This was a really fun series. It's the most I've ever had to prepare for a Pokemon battle, and I'm glad that I was at the center of one of the biggest upsets of the round. In my corner, I've got Faded Charm, who's also in the tournament. I got Toy Time King, who has said that he's going to help me go as far as I can go, and I've got this random Donkey Kong Country YouTuber. Anyway, see ya.